Now we shift on to Professor Biswaroop Chatterjee, who would talk about team-based learning. After you have competency-based learning, you have another option of problem-based learning. Now we have team-based learning, and Professor Biswaroop Chatterjee would talk about team-based learning. He is in Durgapur, West Bengal, and he was with us in AIMS when he did his MD, and then he decided to go back to America, but he is back again. So, Dr. Biswaroop, please go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. It's a huge honor to be invited to be a part of this panel by one of my favorite teachers, Professor Ashok Ratan, and I'll share an anecdote with you. Like, we were really enamored of his revolutionary ideas, of which the most brilliant was those of you who are in microbiology will appreciate this, that he suggested that for identification of pure cultures, instead of giving typical known organisms like Staphylococcus aureus or Streptococcus pyogenes, give people completely unknown things. Isolates that even the examiner has no idea about. It's almost like turning the thing on its head. And so the end point of this examination is not getting the correct identification, which may or may not be possible. But in this age of multi-top, it may be possible, but in those days, it was definitely, it would lead to a situation where nobody knows where you are. And the idea was to find out the approach, whether you can approach an unknown bacterial isolate the right way. So, that's the kind of regard I have for him. And so now, without further ado, I'll launch into. First of all, I'm not an expert on team-based learning. I got into it only because Sir said, and I thought that because he's asked me to take this up, there must be something behind it. And then I actually started implementing it in a couple of my classes. And I realized that the biggest advantage is that it gets the students involved, because now I realize I'm getting on in, I'm not exactly young any longer, and there's this tendency to talk down to youngers. We know so much and you know nothing. So that way, you are kind of like you're pitting the students against not exactly against each other, but they're in a way they're working as a team, working with each other. On the other hand, they're also competing. The teams are competing with each other, so that leads to a very nice dynamic. And the job of the teacher is essentially like maintaining some kind of balance. Now, I also broached this topic to some of my students who are free with me, and they had one very good suggestion, that is that instead of starting off with teams or forming teams on day one, like one sees in the Harry Potter movies, the day you join, you were sorted into Gryffindor and Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff. One should probably wait until the first internal assessment, by which time you have a fairly good idea of who's good and who's not so good and who's like. So the idea is that we have 250 students now. So making very small groups of 7, 8 students is not feasible. The minimum size would be about 10. And out of 10, have maybe 2 good students, 2 students who are really lagging behind, and another 6 who are kind of somewhere in the middle. That seems to help. So each team is kind of poised equally. The other thing is that I've noticed is it definitely increases the workload of I shouldn't say workload, but it increases the duty of the teacher, because most of it's not like team-based learning allows you to, it's not teaching in a completely different way. It's just prioritizing certain things over others. So most of the teaching is actually done by the teacher before the class. So you have to, and given the fact that we don't have a single good textbook in the Indian market, we have to make the notes, the minimum stuff that is necessary to know, that must be understood and known for that particular topic. So we circulate that before the class. and the students are expected to have read it and then come to the class. And then we have an individual kind of assessment. And this is again something for which each student must have an electronic device through which they can submit their answers so that the class can actually run in real time. And then we ask them to do it in teams. And once the team thing starts, then it really becomes fun. And the dynamic completely changes. And I have definitely seen change in the mood of the class, the way they relate to us, and that has really been heartening. So that is what I. So I'm not going to repeat what's there in the books about team-based learning, but this is what I've found till uh, found to be effective till now. And then I'll talk about a few challenges facing medical education in general and team-based learning in particular. So the problem is the way the NEET examination is conducted. Most of the questions require the students to learn by rote, and this is especially true for CBSE and ISE. You are actually discouraged from being too creative because then. I mean, any exam where people score 98%, 99%, I would say there is something wrong about that system. If you really become creative, innovative, thoughtful, then it's not possible to achieve 98, 99% concordance uh, with the approach or with the ideas of the teacher and that of the students. So that is a big handicap that we start off with, and it takes us ages to get them to the point of asking questions. On my very first day, I always make sure to tell them that feel free to ask questions. And when people don't ask questions, I sometimes tease them, I sometimes poke them, and they're actually irritated. Like, what is this? And a class is supposed to be like knowledge being delivered and students writing, taking down notes or whatever. So that is one problem. And I think in the long run, for any kind of innovative medical teaching to succeed, we have to change our schooling system. That's a very important thing. Second is given the huge number of medical colleges that we have and the sheer number of seats that we have, there's bound to be some dilution of the quality of students who come in compared to what we had, say, 40 years ago when seats were not so. And just to put it in perspective, in the last 40 years, the population of the country has grown by maximum 2.5 times, whereas the number of medical college seats has gone up by more than 10 times, much more than 10 times. So definitely students are getting in of a quality who earlier would not have been getting into medical college. That's one problem. Second problem is because I now teach in a private medical college, and this is something we are seeing that a certain number of students come. I've never seen such medical students in my life. They don't have the like most basic understanding of biology and chemistry. So what do I build upon? So that's again and if you have even like 10% of your students are of that quality in a class, it drags down the average level. Like you have 10 brilliant students in a class, they lift the level. If you have 10, like I don't want to use bad words, but like 10 I shouldn't say hopeless, but like 10 students who are really lagging behind, that drags down the level. So that's a problem we have to address somehow. Uh, Another problem is with the evaluation system, because now the students realize that what they do in first prof, second prof, third prof, it doesn't really matter because it's not going to affect their prospect of getting into PG, which is determined by something completely different, and that is the NEET PG examination. And in the NEET PG, the questions that are asked, maximum 30 to 35% of the questions are such that they demand some level of analysis or integration of knowledge on your part. The remaining 65 to 70% of questions are based on depend on rote learning. Until that changes, it is very difficult to get students motivated because they know that no matter what Professor Chatterjee shouts about, I'm ultimately have to pass my NEET PG. And another like really big irritant is the advent of these new coaching centers, dams and Marrow and what. They have like completely disrupted the teaching ecosystem. Students now feel like ultimately they're going to learn everything from dams and Marrow. So coming to, I mean, before becoming too skeptical, let's um, think of a couple of solutions. One is that I think the curriculum must be defined. And as a teacher of microbiology, I realized that the curriculum includes a lot of things that are not really necessary for an undergraduate to learn. For a postgraduate, yes. For an undergraduate, no. And there has to be a very clear distinction between UG and PG must knows, and which is definitely not addressed by any single textbook in the Indian market at the moment. That's very unfortunate. So, for example, a UG student may not know about the four different kinds of hemolysis produced by Staphylococcus aureus, but they definitely should be able to identify syndromes that are, to put it the other way around, if they encounter a syndrome which is potentially caused by Staphylococcus aureus, it could be an abscess, the common. So, the biggest, like a very common manifestation of this is like you ask a question, you ask a student, like, name one disease caused by Staphylococcus aureus, and the answer is staphylococcal toxic shock syndrome. So then I have to tell them, Baba, mother, I've spent 36 years, and honestly, I've not seen a convincing case of toxic shock syndrome. So think of something that is common, that is something that you have seen. I can guarantee the lady who does your dishes in the morning, she has seen, and there's a name for it in every Indian language. And then they're completely dumb. So there's a complete disconnect between real life and what is there, what we're teaching and asking. So that has to change. Second is, to implement any of this, we must have enough teachers. And this is something that the NMC has failed to implement, failed to enforce. We all know of this phenomenon of ghost faculty in colleges. Like it's become common knowledge, and even recruiting agencies tell you, sir, we have positions, excellent pay in that college, and you can opt for full-time positions. They have a nice euphemisms for those things. These are called not part-time. They have a special name for it. So they're very candid about it, like these things. And third is that there has to be some consistency, some uniformity to the end of medical college evaluation, something on the lines of USMLE that they have in the US. It's uniform for all medical students, American and foreign. And the college or the university has nothing to do, nothing to say with it. And most of the, like 90% of the questions I know because I've taken the examination. And it's a very nice examination to take if you love your subject, because they test your understanding of the subject. And we have to do something similar in this country. And so, having said that, I would like try to. I guess I've stuck to time, and I would thank everyone. And once again, thanks and lots of love for Dr. Ratan, who I will repeat again was one of our favorite teachers. Bye.
Thank you very much, Biswaroop. Maybe we would have time to sometime get together and see if we can do something about changing the curriculum. People have mentioned that students learn what they are assessed.